Welcome back, chess fans, to 101 Ways to Win or Lose a Game of Chess. I am your host, Onyx Chess, and today we're going to look at two topics. One, how rushing and not rushing attacks can win or lose games. Two, how breaking chess rules slash fundamental slash law can actually, once again, win or lose games, often depending on how well we justify our reasons for doing so. Alright, this was a game, and it was a Caro-Kann game, and it's the kind of game that a lot of you pre-planner, deep thinking, positionally rooted, fundamental disciples are going to spend a lot of time early trying to find where to put your pieces. If that's not the case for you, it most certainly has been for me. Here, it's so typical. This game, you get in time trouble real quick trying to find something to do. Let's be clear. This pawn structure is nothing fun. It's nothing that can be cracked simply. It's nothing that can be cracked easily, and most definitely it's nothing that can be cracked immediately. It's just nothing to do right now. Okay, this is the kind of defense that needs to be finessed. You need to understand that the weakness in Caro-Kann is not going to be in the first 10-15 moves. The weakness in the Caro-Kann will have to be later in the game, and it's going to have to be provided based on what you're doing in the first 15 moves, and it's not attacking. All right, so White's goal here, I don't feel, is really to attack. We're not really looking at squares like G7 thinking, oh, that's the least offended, let's get at that, or oh, look at that on B7, maybe there's a way to hit that. Now maybe in long term, yeah, but no, this is not a simple kind of a thing where we're gonna find an attack early on. All right, so let's talk about what I used to play in this opening, and that's gonna be actually bishop to d3 here. My feeling was, let's get that castle ready, and I really liked these kinds of variations where black would play so, and let's look at the analysis board. I really like this kind of variation where black would play like that, white would play this kind of a thing. This is very typical. I liked the control that this bishop has over the knight. I don't know. It felt good. It felt like a right kind of a setup. And I've actually had good success with this kind of a thing, particularly against Caro-Kann players that want to rush their defense. All right, White can get some substantial and immediate attacks developing in this kind of a thing if black doesn't play carefully, or if black is a little bit overambitious. All right, today we played something different because let's face it, because I always play that way is not a reason to make a chess move. Every move that you should make should have a very clear reason behind it. That reason should probably pertain to the position on the chessboard, and not so much pertain to what you played yesterday. All right, so here today, we're looking clear. We're looking. We all have lenses. All right, I've never played good chess before a dentist appointment. So we all have different lenses that we play through, and man, it's time to make a video. You understand? So here we played something different. We just played knight to c3. Why? What? What's different? Why that? Why not what I played before? So many reasons. All right. Mainly just a simple, just real simple. Look, pawn takes, knight takes, and so what you got? You got two white bishops ready to develop a knight in the center of the board. Black's gonna have a slow bishop here. There's nothing wrong with this development here. Black's taking away a natural developing square for his knight, maybe. Yo, there's nothing wrong with this. It just seems a little more fundamentally sound than what I was playing, which was bishop to d3. All right. No biggie, no super biggie, but I just felt, let's just, see if we can't play maybe something a little more normal today, or some, I don't know. I just had a feeling, let's just take it slow. In fact, you know what? Let's look at that. Just at the subtlety of the contentness with knight to c3 and being content with a perfectly reasonable and equal, even kind of an opening. Hey man, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's kind of fits the theme of this game, because where in the past I would look at White's Caro-Kann here trying to formulate some immediate attacks, attack, put my piece on attacking square, find the attacking square, what's the attacking plan, attack. In this game, instead, I just looked at the position and asked the demands of the position, and they're mostly counterintuitive. They're mostly weird things that kind of break chess rules, but are kind of good ideas in this very particular positional situation. So, it's interesting the way this theme comes right from the beginning. From instead of bishop to d3 to knight c3, to be content with an easy, simple kind of a little minor, maybe developmental advantages. So it kind of rings right through the whole thing. So Black plays normal here. I like takes. Do you have to? I'm not sure. Maybe you can push, but let's just talk about what happens when we push. When we push this, and this knight, let's say, comes here, or I don't know, even back there, whatever. The problem here is gonna be this pawn on d4. It's just like a French pawn. It's a little bit feeble. At any time, Black can, even right now, Black can play c5, and that's the end of the strength for the e5 pawn. You see, I mean, I guess obviously knight takes pawn here or whatever. But it's now you're getting a little bit, you can already feel the weakness in this pawn structure here. You can already feel that e5 might be in a little bit of trouble if we play this kind of a way. So to me, I just like takes. It's to me much simpler. Nothing wrong with it, all right, so here's a set. Now we're moving pieces twice. So we've broken our first rule a little bit here. But the question is why? What justifies this second knight move here? What is this all about? What's it really doing? What's it? Anything? Nothing. It's nothing. It's a weird move on the surface. I have pieces to develop. I have kings to castle. Why am I moving this knight again? If anything, maybe even take off that knight. In fact, now I'm going to leave a knight outposted in the center of the board for a knight that could have just taken it off so that my knight can do nothing in specific. Well, I don't know because number one, it's a slow knight that has to get to the king side anyway to aid in an attack there. Number two, we're making room for our d4 defender. Alright, after the knight's already on the right side of the board, c3 is more than welcome to be played, because it's not needed for the knight to get out where it won't block in the bishop and all that other business. Alright, here any queen a5 pins are I've completely uncomplicated anything, all of that queen a5 business. And the other variation, I don't know, now I got to start putting my bishop on slow squares, and maybe the queen comes back here, and I don't know, who knows, whatever. But it feels like I'm just keeping the position muchly untangled. Just readying c3 to me justifies that second knight move right then and right there. It felt right. What else? I was thinking it was something else. Just trying to look. Well, I mean, I didn't really want knight to take. Yeah, like even just leaving it there. Okay, so then knight takes, and then what? You know what? Double those pawns. I mean, you can. I'm absolutely not fearful of doubled pawns like this kind of a thing whatsoever. In certain situations, if it makes sense, but I'm not sure that making 3 pawn islands like this is. I mean, so early with what, like, why, like what kind of compensation or what kind of, I'm a little bit wary. Okay, I just don't like to mash up my pawns if not necessary. Now again, is that worth that one move alone? Probably not, but when we couple it with that c3, fixing a lot of issues in the position, yeah, maybe it starts to pan out. It's engage. It's gonna have to attack that king sooner or later, so it's got to get to the king side anyway. So yeah, maybe after everything's factored in, knight d4 makes a little bit of sense. Bishop to f5, that's typical. And here I didn't want that third knight, and I had to spend some time. Again, I don't want another knight move, so here I am, 3 knight moves. This is just, it's weird chess. This is weird. Okay, but maybe the position is justified. Maybe the computer prefers white by almost half a pawn in this position. So what's going on here that white's doing okay, even though white's moved that knight 3 times, and black's been developing pieces and slowly putting up a strong defensive opposition here. What's going on that white would prefer, pardon me, that the computer would prefer white here? And I can't tell you. To me, this looks completely even. Maybe even black has a small edge with that knight outposted and so on. I mean, after all, c4 can't be played without d being completely backwards. Alright? And even if at any point we talk about pushing d, then c takes d, and we'll have an island pawn, an isolated pawn, an isolani right there on the d file. So it's that whole pawn structure is questionable. So then, like, how do we even undermine this outpost in the middle that black has here? These are all questions that we'll have to ask and answer at some point. And this is the kinds of questions that we can often find ourselves pondering a little bit too hard right in the middle of in the beginning of a game, where we take away a lot of our clock for the end of the game. But at the end of the day, you have to ask, what's that knight doing there exactly? Why is it so unwanted there? And I can't really tell you. It's tough to say what that knight can do from squares like b4, f4 in this position. It's difficult to see. So it looks like it just needs to be there for later, and that really is the theme and the theory behind it. Must be behind the Caro-Kann. It's just long term. Maybe I'll need this later. Let me put this on a good square now and save it for later, where it might be on a good square for later. That's what we're doing. It's not about immediate attacks. It's not about tactical masterpieces, at least in the beginning of the game. All right, so there's that third knight move. Well, here's the question. If not, I mean, to me, it seems like the only move. Okay, at least that's how I felt in the game. We could talk about this kind of stuff here, but I'm sure I've played this variation before, where bishop goes to d3 and somehow magically my d4 pawn falls, later, or it's pressured, or all of a sudden I'm reacting to what should be a black defense, and now black isn't offense. I don't know. I don't know. Bishop to d3, to me, stops the defense of the d4 pawn, which just all too often seems to become a liability. If not directly, this queen can attack it like this, like that. Alright, there's a double, after this bishop moves out here, or whatever. It gets funky sometimes. Alright. And I mean, it's a great opportunity for black to keep the pressure on the position, right? Bishop to d3. Black doesn't have to take immediately. Okay? So black can even just leave pressure on the position like that. in most variations, if knight ever moves, bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop back, and now queens may be a liability on the third rank where it can maybe be harassed or, you know, put onto secondary squares instead of primary squares. Who knows? It just doesn't feel good at all. You know, this kind of an idea, I don't know if I want to hurt my king side. You know, with black still having diagonal strikers down the a7, g1, I'm not sure I like f3 so much. Might be a different story if, you know, at least the black bishop wasn't on the board anymore or something. But you know, you're looking for problems, so you start weakening your castle like that. You could say, well, let's play f3, bishop out somewhere, wherever, and then queen out, and then let's go just castle queenside then maybe. And that's an idea. And I suppose I could have relegated myself to that, but and many times I think I would play that way. But the spidey sense has to go off. You have to be wary of that kind of thing, because then you're talking about not playing c3 to defend the d4 pawn, because black still has the white diagonal available for attack then, right? And that castle's gonna be extremely susceptible to attack. He's already got 1 tempo on the attack, 2, 3 is attack. I'm not gonna say it's almost there, but it's to say that kind of a castle can't last. I mean, just look at the mechanics of the position. Just the communication between this kind of a thing here, all right, is deadly. This bishop can just back off there. Who's going to touch it in a million moves? No bird. That bishop's there to stay on that diagonal. That diagonal can't be blocked. We're missing an e pawn somehow. So there's a wide open attack. That faucet can be turned on full. And I suspect before black gets to that king side, and I can mount an attack or a counter attack back on black. It should feel funny. It should feel funny to play that kind of way. I don't think you can play that kind of way, man. The castle queen side here, highly suspect. That's only 1-2 moves away from an attack. And as soon as B attacks C, that's all she wrote. That's it. That's you know, that's 2 moves from an attack. That's not going to be good. Can you defend d4 without c3? I wouldn't try it. I mean, maybe. But to invest all of your, I mean, you have to invest everything. You know, it's tricky. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be too rotten, but it's just not the kind of chess I like to play. There's too many teasing moves black can play. That's gonna soften and tempt the position. You know, it's not optimal. You know, so what then? Like, I mean, what is there to play besides knight to g3, a third knight move? So here we are breaking a rule, but is the justification okay? And I think it is. And here's why. As soon as we attack this bishop, now actually, you know, black has to move that bishop twice. All right, I mean, we can talk about things like that, and you know, black allowing his pawn structure to be, you know, displaced a bit. And honestly, I don't think it's too hurting after something like, you know, e6, knight takes, pawn takes. It doesn't feel too hurting to play this way for black. I mean, computer disagrees with me. I guess maybe I don't know why. The computer disagrees. There must be a tactical shot in there somewhere. But on the surface, it's probably not the worst setup black could play. You know. But black, you know, retreats and does what it should, which is just keep pressure on that diagonal, keep pressure on that some central squares, control this knight not being able to function without that bishop's authority. So, you know, black plays back. So black's wasted a move right back. He's giving that move right back. You know, I think that's the best move. for black here, so it's not that bad. So we said we wasted 3 tempo on the knight, maybe more like 2. Okay, but nonetheless, you know, development is perfectly equal here, because let's not forget that black still has to prove the development of his f8 bishop, so it's perfectly equal here, and there's nothing to really worry about for either side. Okay, but notice, there's no real attack going on. There's none. It's not an attack kind of a thing. And I think this is, you know, this misinterpretation that, you know, everything has to be setting up an attack and setting up a defense against an attack, that setting up an attack that may or may not be there, setting against a defense against an attack that may or may not be there. We're looking at the wrong thing. Sometimes the question is simply, how can I improve my position? You know, how can I put a piece on a square where it belongs? You know, maybe that's sometimes just a little bit of a better question than, you know, trying to find something that really doesn't exist, and often playing moves that speak to something that does, like, imagine things that, if you're convinced there's an attack and there's not, and your move ends up addressing an attack that doesn't exist, what is that move actually addressing then? It's addressing a fantasy. It's addressing, you know, a weird fiction, you know, in your mind. You know, you've made up an attack that doesn't exist and won't work, can't work, you know, and you're playing strange then, you see. And so it's not always attacks about attacks and defending against attacks and so on. Sometimes it's just about improving your position and giving yourself some long-term scope and prospects. Now, just as much as this bishop, you know, guards against the knight, well, it's a little bit the other way around too. All right, so unless that bishop wants to move here, here, or here, that bishop's going to need this knight's permission. All right, not to mention 2 moves away from pressuring that bishop, you know, kinds of things where that knight's going to really help, and so on. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword here, the fight with these two here. You know, it's an interesting little feature and position, whatever, but at the end of the day, we just got to play on. You got to find that move for white here, and again, we have a king to castle, man. You see, we have a king to castle, but the problem here was it's a little bit pressing. What variation was it? What variation was it? There's something that has to happen, I felt now. Okay, so, okay. This kind of a thing had me feeling a little bit nervous. Right? Yeah, that attack on... I think I just wanted to keep that knight out, just to keep the situation simplistic. There's only one defender on the pawn, but granted, there's only one attacker on the pawn too, and that's going to be for a long time, for a very long time. All right, so it's not like c3 is necessary right now. It's actually one defender is completely adequate. Nothing's going to attack that pawn. This bishop's a long way from getting here. All right, either knight is, well, I guess this knight can come here like this, but it's solid. That d4 pawn doesn't need immediate attention. But again, yeah, when I start seeing these kinds of things where knight, you know, can come into b4 there and maybe harass the c2 pawn, and then once again I'm stuck reacting, and you know, yeah, that kind of thing makes me a little queasy, a little nervous sometimes. Just for interest's sake, what does the computer say about allowing that knight in there? Let's say something like this knight comes here, this knight comes here. So, and rightfully so, the computer says this is almost a pawn ahead for black. It's just not something you can really allow. Pierce says a3, and that's another way to keep the knight out. So, you know, I played c3. Okay. And, you know, a3 is better for reasons the computer can understand. For me, I like c3 better because my knight doesn't need the c3 square anymore. c3 locks down d4. c3 allows queen activity on the diagonal and on the file. I like c3 better for a whole pile of reasons. You know, so yeah, it says a3 is the right way to play. What I assume it's right, but whatever. It too said we got to keep the. Oops. It too said we got to keep the knight up. So if nothing else, the idea was correct. All right, and I think it says a3 is 0.4 and c3 ends up being 0.3. So same thing. Okay. All right. Knight plays knight out to d7. Very calm, developing move. And white's got to answer. And just, you know, we got to do something here. This king does have to get castled. Pawns are locked where they're going to be for a long time. There's nothing to do but move some pieces out. Again, development is basically identical here. But notice the slow nature of white's gradual development, just taking time to answer, to ask and answer questions and problems as they arise in the urgency that is justified, and that's what you do. Okay, so here we see Caro-Kann pawn formation, and black is doing well. Okay, and that is so typical. This is what the Caro-Kann is all about for black. It's saying you can undermine my knight, but then d4 is a target. Okay, yeah, you can kick that knight out, but then you're gonna have some holes. Okay, you're gonna have some squares that pawns can't protect, especially if these pawns manage to make a proper hole out of d4. Alright, so it's very solid, and you can't knock it off. If you want to trade a bishop for the knight, black welcomes that, but even if just knight takes knight, black welcomes that too, because then it fixes his pawns in the center. Or maybe even, oops, maybe even this way. You know, but either way, you're not making progress like that. It's a very rock solid. It's a tough nut to crack. What can I tell you? Caro-Kann, it's a legitimate opening for a reason. It's passive, but so is the attack. The attack must be passive too. That's when you get into problems. If you try attacking the passive nature of this Caro-Kann defense, you just won't have resources. You can't do it early. As far as I see, as far as I know, it ain't happening early. It's something that's it's got to be long-term problems in a position that you're able to exploit. One, I think, is this weakish pawn here, where when you tease it up to here or here, you leave a target on c6. So c6 actually, I think, is a bit of a target, even though it looks like it's defended at the moment. But usually you can tease a weakness there. These kinds of things, long-term things that you kind of looking at to see if we can get that going. Often this bishop ends up here. That's not atypical at all. Well, you know what? That's two from being attacked this way. You know, maybe there's something there. And I mean, the second move there is with tempo, because the bishop moves, and who knows what you can do with that next tempo or whatever. But you know, these are the kinds of just slow, very slow, very slow and simple kinds of things that, you know, that we look at doing to prosecute this defense. Yeah, bishop has to go. I don't think it's any magical thing. We can say, why not bishop d3? Well, again, like this is a little bit weird now. Like, why are you going there? What's there? You know, you're looking at what, a pawn. You're going to trade that bishop for the knight, or what? Like in a semi-open position? Maybe no. Maybe no. What is this bishop not? It's, you know, it's about going not to. This bishop move, you gotta like it. It's about saying, what is your bishop doing? Am I gonna need any of these squares ever? Probably not. So just, you know what? Have your little -3 points there. Probably you're going to end up moving 1, 2 moves to stop some kind of a little bishop attack there, probably, maybe. And your bishop is useless. It's my bishop is going to be more useful to me than yours is to you, especially if I can manage to somehow knock off your bishop with one of my knights. And then at that point I'll come back to, we'll revisit bishop d3 and we'll see what's going on then. All right? And not only that, but when you look at that c3, and this is another reason for c3, by the way, was that nice mobility that it affords bishop f1. That I did see too. That was another reason behind c3. It just does a great job of aerating white squares and giving my white bishop all kinds of scope, all kinds of dynamic scope and potential. It's tough to know if white's gonna take residence on which diagonal exactly, and black has to plan against it. Okay, and that all takes time. So you know that's what bishop c4 is about, and I really like that move. You know, it's a cool consideration just to see that this bishop's not looking at the right diagonal. He's misplaced as far as I'm concerned. Now it's not to say later in the game black can't correct that or something and make this bishop a beast. That's not necessarily true or not true, but where it is now, hey, if you're happy with it there, I'm happy with it there. All right, so that's the thing, like that, like long term, you know. Is bishop d3 terrible? No, I don't think so. Bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop, you know, and it turns, you know, a little bit, you know, good, bad, who knows, you know, but it's still no real reason to take off his useless attacker, no real reason to trade off my piece that might have so much potential in the future. Okay, he's getting his castle ready. Again, another slow move, weird move, quiet move. What's this about? No, it's not about this. I know he's castling next move. It's not about pinning anything. This move, another one, very just weird. You know, why not just castle now or then whatever? I don't know, whatever. And this one took me so long. And this move, queen d2. Computer doesn't recommend it apparently. But queen to e2, it felt, I don't know, what was I looking at? What was I looking at? What was I looking at? I'm not sure. So this was the one move I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. 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 That's what it was. That's what it was. Because another thing was I wasn't really super hyper about bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop. I didn't welcome that weakness in my kingside castle, but probably that's not the end of the game, obviously. But I don't know, yeah, you know. Plus you're already talking about if we can somehow tease off a bishop for knight exchange, that would be to the advantage of us as well. So I was that's what this move is about. It was about preparing, I believe, knight to e4 and not a whole lot more. And that's with tempo too, so it really does tease bishop takes knight. It really does, because otherwise this bishop's gonna have to spend a tempo to go back somewhere where it was. You know, it's already come out to here. Is it gonna have to now probably retreat to there? If not bishop takes knight, then how do we protect that bishop? And either way, even after knight's into e4, even if you want something like, say, let's say queen here, then just knight takes bishop, and I'm off a knight for a bishop in a semi-open position. So we're kind of cool there too, you know. So that's kind of nice. And yeah, by some miracle black doesn't castle, then are there some tricks with this, like this, and then he can't take there, but then this pawn, I don't know, whatever. Maybe some bonus weird trick there somewhere. But long story short, it felt like the proper way to make progress, or to at least stack potential into the position, you know. And so I made that move. You know, very slow move, very, you know, but it's safe. You know, this knight can't really harass this because this bishop helps, but maybe it could. You know, looking at it, maybe it could. I mean, if I was black here, I don't know why I don't just play knight f4, bishop takes. Bishop takes. But computer says white's actually an improvement for white here. So I don't know why I wasn't scared of knight f4. I guess I should have been. I guess I should have been. Just knight f4, because I won't have wanted to trade this here. I won't have wanted to. But at the same time, that's like my bad bishop too. At the same time, it's not going to be on any of these squares anytime soon. So it's and I mean, even if we talk about this kind of stuff here, it's looking at the backs, it's a bad bishop. So I guess that wouldn't have been so terrible. So this is that luck that you get sometimes if you're not, you know. But in the game, had my opponent played knight f4, would I have diagnosed this as a bad bishop? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't have taken that knight. Maybe I would have moved my queen. And I don't know where. I guess I probably would have had to have taken a knight just because of all the tempo invested, right? Because I mean, it's what a tempo drain on black too. I mean, how many moves has black put into that? What is this? What, 1, 2, 3 moves for the knight, and we're gonna swap it off with a bishop straight off the back row. You know, so I mean, it's a lot of tempo, and that saves my queen's tempo here. So you know, it's not horrid and horrible, I suppose, but makes sense. All right. Anyway, that's not how the game went. Queen e2, black castles, knight prepare. Okay, there's that e4 move, bishop for the knight, and now we've achieved one of those very slow, one of those very, you know, subtle advantages where we've now taken off his defender on this b1 h7 diagonal. Alright, in a semi-open position. Now white has a small edge with these bishops here, but granted, it's not really open. You can't call this open. This is a semi-open position. Alright, so it's really not like some big, oh, you know, it's one now, black may as well resign now. No. Caro-Kann is a tough nut to crack. To try to break through this kind of a beast, whether black has knights or bishops or one of both or neither, whatever, this is going to be tough. You're going to have to prove your case every time. And it's not going to be necessarily easy. Okay? Very even. Alright, and again, this is where we can so often, instead of looking at these little improvements, albeit long term, okay? So we're not saying, you know, to play the Caro-Kann, just, you know, think shallow and move quick. That's not what we're saying. But we're not, at the same time, we're not looking for plans that don't exist. That's the thing, is you have to be wary about that with Caro-Kann. You're going to be in time trouble for sure, because you're going to spend all your time forcing something there, forcing a plan, forcing something that it just doesn't exist. Sometimes you have to just take a small bite. Sometimes you have to just make a small improvement, you know, and that's kind of what this was here, right? Because after knight to e4, black has a question. Wasted tempo on this bishop, leave this knight in the middle, so on and so forth. You know, even if this bishop comes back, I think I'm still happy-ish with this. You know, I'm not really sad about that. It turns out that would be black's best move. So computer says black's a little better here. You know, after bishop to c7. All right. But I'm not sad about it at all. I mean, I think this is completely playable for both sides. Alright, as it happened in my game, opponent, helped me out a bit and took that knight. Went ahead and took that knight. Alright. And so now these ideas are on the board. These ideas are on the board. With pressure on h7. Alright. So black brings his slow knight to a good square. And white retreats. And you can retreat here or here. I like queen to c2 just in the name of, a little bit of a battery there. Okay, a little queen bishop battery. And in the name of this queen being completely safe. Black no longer has a white bishop. So the only question is, where can this queen be? And that's another thing that's been responsible for my last 100 moves of growth. Is it's become a lot easier to see when pieces are safe and when they're not. Here I see, okay, black doesn't have a white bishop. So the only thing can attack me is knights and rooks and queens. But basically, we're really only talking about, well, first off, queens and just queen trade. And that's probably not going to be plus minus either way. It's probably just a fair trade queen for a queen. So talking about queen on the diagonal and then queen trades or whatever, we're not really too concerned about that. So really, it's only knights and rooks that we're concerned about. And I mean, you always have to watch when, there's x-rays from rooks and stuff. But that's a long ways away, and there's 3 pieces in between that x-ray, and there's no rooks that look to infiltrate on the horizontal neither. So really, we're only talking about knights. And so then the question is very simple. Where can a knight attack this square from? And we see that there's nowhere that knights are going to be attacking this queen from. This queen is completely safe and solid, looking straight at the king's side. Alright? There to stay. Long term. These are good squares. These are fantastic squares to take. When you play chess, you look for putting your pieces on these kinds of squares at all times. Now, once again, if you look at the book says we like, queens and rooks in the center. Lots of power and force to be applied down the center. Watch over the center and so on. But it also tells you to watch over the castle and so on. So you got to look at your position and just find out which one is, maybe more applicable. Have a quick argument and say, well, should I go queen e2 or queen, blah, blah, blah. And you just have a quick little argument. And in this case, I said, I like my queen better on c2. The computer says it's better on e2. But that's for reasons I don't know and can't play. Okay, I don't know why the computer likes it better on e2. So I could not play that little plus 0.2 variation that it discusses. I have no idea. Alright, but I can see why it's good on c2. And so that's where I put my queen. Okay. And here we see what we were hoping for all those moves ago. We were hoping that maybe, just maybe, we could find a weakness on the c6 square. Now, granted, it's a closed file. Alright, so my rooks can't just, slam into that pawn and just knock it off the board any which way. Okay, so even that attack is going to have to be very long term. The queen certainly can't attack it on any diagonals. So attack must be long term. This bishop is miles away from attacking this pawn. It's who knows when or it's bizarre to even think of anything attacking that c6 pawn right now. How things stand. All right, but long term, it could be a liability. Maybe this knight ends up here without the black bishop on or something like that. And especially after, something like, let's say b4, if we pressure that pawn and black is forced to move it, we're going to have a pawn at the end of the day like that. So, there it is. There's that little bit of a weakness we're hoping for, Now, where to put the bishop? Why not just battery immediately? Maybe you could. Maybe we could play that way. But the truth of this position is, once again, let's make use of this aerated queenside that we gave ourselves. Let's not rush the position. Let's not rush the attack. It's just because it's the end of it. You understand? Once you put your bishop here on d3, that's it, right? Knight to f4, and that's it. This bishop has nowhere to go. It's got nothing to do, nowhere to go. I guess it can, what? Keep in mind, double attack. So what? Go back there, go back home. So black's made all this progress. Now, yeah, now maybe bishop takes and blah, blah, blah. But that's a little less active than I'd like, not more active than I'd like. Maybe this isn't terrible, but it's just not the way I was thinking, and not the way, it's not in the spirit of what we're talking about here, which is, you know what, take your time. You know, don't rush the attack, you know. But at the time, no, I'm feeling here, no way am I going bishop to d3, because then knight to f4, and that is a trigger that's gonna force off this bishop into mediocre land, or so on and so on. But the truth is, the computer's looking even deeper than me, and the computer's saying, no, hang on a sec, just take it off. That's no problem. This is no problem. We're good. We're good. What's white got? We're good. What's black got? We're good. You know, but to me, I just see this as almost completely equal. And I felt like, hey, if anything, it's going to be the long-term features in white's position as long-term scope to attack with pieces. So let's leave the pieces on and play a variation that's going to do that for me. Alright, so that's what was played. Bishop back to b3. Here, I was actually looking at white to play a4 anyway. I thought, hey, that's an interesting little fracture. You know, if a4, b takes a, I think rook actually was what I was thinking might be playable. But whatever the case is, bishop takes, rook takes. And black's going to have an isolani on the c there, on c6. So, and meanwhile, I'll have a nice, strong structure left here intact. So that's a big improvement. I was looking to play a4 anyway. So as soon as he played a5, it almost forces a4. And hey, look at that. We're good to go. I mean, you could play passive like a3 and then black plays a4 and bishop black. But why? No. A4 works good for me. Let's play a4. Because now, like I say, if he takes, then we're talking about isolanis. And even if he doesn't take, a nasty little push. Alright, but again, we're looking real careful on what's available for black. What's going on exactly with black. And that knight just has nowhere real good to go. The hope was it would go back, but there was a chance, yeah, knight could go f4. And no, I'm still not happy to just take it like this. Although I probably should be, but the question is, how closed is this going to stay? That was kind of my question. Like, it doesn't feel like this is going to stay closed. It feels like this is going to go open. It feels like if the longer I leave these bishops on, the more chance they have of being extremely powerful. That's what I'm thinking. You know, this doesn't look like a pawn structure that's going to stay closed. It looks like something that can get blown open, and then my bishops will be that much more stronger. Alright, that's what I'm thinking. Okay. And I'm thinking even back here, because it's a big decision. I take this or not. How powerful is this knight? It's going to be replaced. What is going on here exactly? Or black will fix his pawns, and then I'll be the one with the deficit. You know, if at any time b takes c, and c's taken back on exchange, then this pawn's going to be a backwards pawn right here, exploited down the semi-open file. Okay. So always looking at pawn structures like that. So it's a big question exactly what to do here. If we push that's something that he can't take that move back, man. So there's a big thing. Hey, what else does that do? Oh, guess what? That was the defender of the d4 pawn. That was the defender of the d4 pawn. Uh-oh. Now this is backwards. Huh? and it can't move. It's binded. You know, d5's binded. Black more than controls d5, and will more than control d5 probably for the rest of the game, probably. So that pawn's never moving. So that's a static weakness. On top of that, this pawn is on a black square. This is a black bishop. So that bishop is 3 moves away. That bishop is 3 moves away. Alright, in tandem with a rook. Maybe even doubled. Who knows what? You know, bishop here, queen there. Oops. Bishop here, queen there. Okay. So long term, d4 is not good now. Long term, d4 can probably be, if not taken, pressured so hard that white will have to be forced to defend it, to where white will probably have another weakness somewhere in the position that black can exploit, including an advanced b pawn. Okay, that's in the position there. That might be something to cause a static nuisance for white. So it's like, once you play moves like c4, you have to know like what you're doing, is what I'm saying here. Alright, and my idea here was actually to push c5. That was actually my idea. It's backwards anyway. Look, this pawn is backwards anyway. It's going nowhere anyway. It's not going to d5. It's backwards anyway. This pawn is weak anyway. So c5 does absolutely nothing to strengthen or weaken the d4 pawn. d4 has already been resigned to be a long-term weakness in white's structure. So c5, if it's good, then let's just play c5. If it's good for us, let's just play it then. Okay, but let's look at what happens here. So c4 pushes the knight to f4. This was calculated, because then g3 answers that. Okay, this was calculated. g3, then what? Knight back here or knight back here? Okay, notice all these holes on the white squares, but black does not have a white bishop. If black had a white bishop, then we would not play c4. Understand how chess works? That's how it works. If black had a white bishop on any of these squares at all, anywhere, if black had a white bishop, we would not be playing c4 here. Because after knight to f4, g3 is the only thing to do. It's the only thing to do. Okay, it's not. Computer says c5 castle, and there's a million other moves. But as far as I could see, it was kind of necessary. All of this pressure, I wasn't happy with this. What do you mean castle? Computer says, oh yeah, just castle, you'll be fine. Yeah, tell a person that. Tell a person that they're going to be a-okay castling into this kind of a thing here. Really? It's tough to see for people. It's tough to see for people. It looks like guaranteed long-term heartache. And to top it off, a nice and weak d4 pawn at the end of all the effort. And a questionable bishop on b3 at the moment. You see? So, anyway, long story short, g3 is played, knight goes back. We get our why c5? Just to stop that business. Just to stop that business. Okay, because if I don't play c5, then he will. You know? So what if he plays? So, well, you know, I like that. I like that kind of stuff. That's gonna mitigate my bishop for sure. Then he can telegraph my bishop's only attack. You know? So c5, this is all kind of seen back here already. Okay. So the question is like what to play now? What can white hope for here? There's a couple things going on too in terms of pinning this knight here. we're now like, we want to kind of play these kinds of a move. But it's, immediately it's we no longer have H. It was looked at too, because there's that interesting communication, even if this kind of stuff happens. This was looked at carefully with that kind of pressure. Can white play that way? Queenside castle is on the way. Queenside castle is on the way. It's amazing how strong that castle would be all of a sudden. But this bishop, whether we get in that castle or don't make it in time, once black's bishop touches f4 in this kind of a pawn structure, look how far that knight would be from kicking it. That bishop would be there forever. That bishop would be there forever. So whether I even get castled or not, it's an amazing attacker. Long-term attacker. White has long-term weaknesses. It's not this kind of a thing probably isn't going to look too good at the end of the day. So if bishop to g5 after h6 pretty much kind of has to take. Maybe you could call it a softening move and just bring it right back, maybe to d2 and then castle or something like that. I mean, you could think about things like that, but here I just said, you know what? Why not just h4 immediately? All right, what's the idea? The idea was actually because we don't get nothing after bishop to g5. Bishop takes knight, queen takes bishop, and all we've done is improve the queen. Okay, that's it. We've done nothing more, really. I mean, fair enough that knight maybe has ideas of outposting again or whatever, but it's questionable. It's probably not terrible, but it's not. I don't know. Okay, it's questionable. My thing was, hey, after h4, if black wants to weaken that king side, cool. We're good with that. Hey, look at the hole our knight would have then. Look at the hole our bishop would have then. Okay, so after h5 is no more h6. Okay, so then we can play some bishop business here like this. Where in all variations, not all, because there's a black bishop that can, but in most variations we're going to end up doubling that pawn on the f like that after takes or something like that, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking. If black doesn't play that way, then bishop will kick knight where knight's going to go back here, probably not. Knight's going to go probably to e7, then bishop to g5. And now no matter what happens, we can double that pawn again because that queen can't take back. I guess the knight might have to find another place to go or whatever. But notice we've removed a defender from that side of the board. Okay, so the attack might reign. Considering we're probably going queenside anyway, our attack should be fairly quick. I don't know. I just hope for opportunity that way there. So that's what it was about. It's just about starting that early attack and displacing some defenders and finessing the position a bit, massaging black's castle just to maybe make a weakness here or there. I was perfectly happy even with pushing to h6 at some point, where maybe then g6 and and then maybe bishop here or something like that. We're just drawing. This is what you do. Same thing. We just artists creating. Just make some weakness there maybe. And just looking at the solidity of white's queen side, especially if we leave this bishop on the board. Even I was thinking bishop even just here for a little spot for a minute if it needs. I mean, yeah, even bishop just to e3 for the time being or whatever. But it's really strong on the queen side. All right, there's no real attack. Black's far from attacking, so. So here we are. Okay. Black lines up on the g3. I'm looking at this. I'm thinking, what? Is there some kind of a sack going on here? It's a little bit strange. Like, you know, looking at it, I played bishop to g5 anyway, but I was a little bit worried about this kind of business here with check. But I didn't understand what would be the big problem after either queen e2. Pardon me. Yeah, I didn't even look at queen f2. I didn't even look at this. I suppose I would have after he had played it. But I was looking at queen e2 and I'm thinking, okay, so he's going to go queen g2. And then I'm going to go king up here. And then, oh, that falls. Oh. That falls with check. Yeah, it's no good. So actually, I was actually looking at king e2. Obviously, queen f2 is the only answer here. Anyway, he didn't play that way. He simply, you know, centralized that knight and everything, and this is the end of the game. You know? End of the game now. He ran out of time. I flagged him. You see? Does dude just like me, man. Same thing. Exact same thing like me. When you get into this Caro-Kann and you're trying to play the game start to finish and you can't do it. You're trying to look for fatal attacks and attack lines and attack. You can't do it. You're looking for defense from attack. You can't do it. There's no attack. Think about it that way. It's just, you know, little note to self. Think about it that way. This is not an attack variation. It's just a chess variation. There's so many different aspects to chess, from attacking to defending to pressure to potential to threats. You know, to little positional threats. It's not nothing to do necessarily with attack the king. You know, there's so much other ways to get a little advantage here and a little advantage there. That's what the Caro-Kann's about. And if that's what you look for, and that's what you're after, and that's what you focus on, that's what you'll find. And it'll be to good effect. Much better than trying to focus on attacks that don't exist and make moves that speak to things that aren't in the position. You see? So, that's what it is. Little note to self. This has been Onyx Chess. Thanks for stopping by, and may your pieces find the very best squares.